What is going on, people? Anthony Williams coming at you with another video, another important success principle today. Today I want to do something just a little bit different. We were on the call Think and Grow Rich, and we started going over the 50th law. John Blaze Chapman took over for Paul Hutchins on the call today, and we went over not our usual material that we go over, but we went over the 50th law because John Blaze Chapman picked up this book, The 50th Law, and it was recommended to us at an event that we were at, and everybody, or all the leaders, and a leader that was on stage recommended the book, so all the other leaders, of course, if you're a leader, you follow the leader, okay? If you're a good follower, you follow the leader. That's how leaders become leaders. So, The 50th Law, 50 Cents, and Robert Greene. I picked up the book. And before I start to talk about the book, I'm going to put it down right here. I want to talk about the principles. I started reading the book, and it was talking about, there's two things I want to talk about. The fearless type personality, okay? In the book, 50 Cents talks about, and Robert Greene talks about, what makes 50 so successful and why he has been so successful in his life. And the fact and the point that came up with distinguished everybody else around him is that fact of fearlessness. And how exactly did he get to that fearlessness? Well, if you know and you have done any study in the 50 Cent's life, you know it was a time when he was grinding, hustling on the streets and everything, and he was starting to make his break into the music industry. And you know, before he actually had a chance to get there, he was actually shot 9 times. So, from that point, he had to rebuild his life, rebuild, you know, his image, and actually, you know, hustle even harder to get back into the music industry, because after he was shot, wasn't nobody deal with him. So, the fearless type of personality, and in the book it talks about that, the fearless type of personality, and it also talks about reality, the point of becoming so crystal clear in reality and to understand what's going on in your environment and being a realist. See, most people, when they actually don't achieve their goals in life, what they do is they start to regress back into fantasy. And in that book, it talks about being very realistic and becoming a fact of a realist. Being able to ground yourself in the moment and be in the moment. And I talked about this before in many videos that I've done thus far. Being in the moment, because it's only in that moment. Most people don't stay in the moment because they're scared of the moment, or they're thinking about the past, they're thinking about the future, and they're not grounded in the moment. The power that you need to succeed in life is grounded in the moment, because then you can actually control your environment. You can't really control what's going on in your environment, but you can control yourself in your environment. So if you're controlling yourself in your environment, therefore you're controlling your environment. Okay? So, I want to talk about the point of reality, because I was watching an interview after I read the book, and I was listening to, and I started doing a little bit of research on YouTube. And there was a time, and I was looking at interviews, and 106 in Park, Bow Wow, and no, it wasn't actually Bow Wow on 106 in Park. It was the other guy before Bow Wow had the show, and I forget his name. So there was an interview, and G-Unit was actually on the stage and being interviewed. And it was a time in Eminem's life, and Eminem was there. And it was a time in Eminem's life to where, you know, he was going through hardships and he wasn't in his right mind for that actual interview. And the whole G-Unit was actually on the stage. And I want to talk about this principle because it goes back to the reality and understand what's in reality. And in this interview, as I observed, you know, the body language, the interaction that was going on between, you know, the ones that were from 106 in Park that was interviewing 50 Cent in the G-Unit, I noticed something about 50 Cent. Something that I didn't notice about everybody else that was on stage. He was the only one that I seen that was in the present moment, because he understood what was going on with Eminem, and he ran interference. If you know, if you're ever doing an interview and somebody feels uncomfortable, and if you're a good interviewer, you pick up on your environment, you pick up on where to go with your questions and everything else like that to make the other person feel at ease. But I noticed in 50 Cent in this interview is that he kept running interference to divert the attention off of Eminem, because he was going through something in his life. He had just lost his best friend had passed away, and he wasn't in his right mind. So they kept asking him questions. But I noticed how 50 Cent played this interview between that reality. That he grounded himself in the moment, and he understood what was going on in the moment. And he kept running interference to divert that actual attention. I don't think that book was written then. But I noticed that principle that he talked about in the book, that point of being stuck in reality and understand what's going on in the moment to be able to change how things turn out in your environment. So I noticed that from that interview that he did on 106 in Park. So another thing I want to talk about before I close out, the fact of being fearless. Now, I have done plenty of videos on the fact of what fearlessness is, being fearless and having that fearless type of personality. You don't have to be shot 9 times, as the book says, to actually get this point of fearlessness. But I think the point of having fearlessness and being a fearless type of person is coming from the fact of being able to be grounded in the moment. I think that's where, you know, you're not clouded by your past, you're not clouded by your future, you're not running away from what's going on. And becoming a realist within the moment actually gives you a chance to be able to ground yourself and to face your fears. There is no quick antidote to fear. It's either you're going to face it or you're going to run away from it. And the more of that, whatever that you do, is the more of that, whatever you're going to get. So if you run away from fear all the time, you're going to constantly build that mechanism within inside of yourself to run away and to be a fear type person. But if you face your fears, then you're actually gaining the power. Because each fear that you conquer in your life, and he speaks about this in the book, each fear that you conquer in your life, you actually gain upper hand over it. And then when you're placed in that situation, it no longer affects you. A new fear may come, something else that you may have to deal with. But these are things that you know, this book talks about, the 50th law, of conquering, overcoming your fear, and having that fear type personality. A person that I respect, and like I said, I've been studying 50 Cent's book, but I respect the fact of 50 as a man on his growth of where he had first came into the industry as opposed to where he's at now. It's not every day that you can watch somebody grow from point to point to point and to see where he's at now. And of course, a successful businessman, and the principles that he laid down, oh my goodness, I mean, the principles that he laid down in that book is like a blueprint to, you know, his inner makeup on how he sees his reality and how he deals with his reality. So, today, if you haven't picked up the book, The 50th Law, matter of fact, before I actually go, I almost forgot. I wanted to read something out of this book. 50 Cent in his own words. The greatest fear people have is that of being themselves. They want to be 50 Cent or someone else. They do what everyone else does, even if it doesn't fit where and who they are. But you get nowhere that way. Your energy is weak and no one pays attention to you. You're running away from the one thing that you own, what makes you different. I lost that fear, and once I felt the power that I had by showing the world I didn't care about being like other people, I could never go back. And that's the fact, ladies and gentlemen, of being yourself and not trying to be like everybody else. And being yourself, and I want to touch on this point before I close out the video, but touching upon this point, being yourself, you have to understand that everything, when you came into this world as a baby, everything was, you know, provided for you. Everything, well, for some people, everything was provided for you. And the thing about it is that, you know, you're constantly bombarded with, you do things this way, you do things that way, you do things with this way, you do things with that way, and you don't know the correct way of finding yourself because you have all these conflicting, from your school teacher, your mother, your father, you know, your uncle, and all the other environment factors that you have going into your psychological makeup on how you project yourself onto your world. So, to come to know yourself and to be yourself is not an easy thing, because you have to strip away all the old, all the things that you think about reality, and actually be in reality in order to know your strengths and your weaknesses and not to run away from these things, and to build yourself to come to know yourself, to strip away, and then to come, once you strip away, to actually start to observe yourself, to find out who exactly you really are, and what's your strengths and what your weaknesses, and build upon those things to be able to project yourself more powerfully into who you are. Not into people say you are, or not who your mom said you are, not who your dad said you are. I mean, these people, you know, we came into this world and they were our guardians, but it comes to a certain point in time in your life to where you got to fend for yourself. And that's why I love this book so much, because it talks about self-reliance also, and having a point of self-reliance and depending on yourself. And taking that point, knowing that your parents can only do so much for you, but there's a time when you have to stand up and be your own man, be your own woman, and to stand up and to exert your own power and find out who you are, stop running away from yourself, and be who you are, and stand up and know that everybody around you will be drawn to you as you stand up and be who you are, and be who you're meant to be when you find out who you are. So, I'm going to let it go, but this book is definitely where it's at. If you haven't picked up this book, I'm telling you, you're missing out. You're totally missing out. And if you haven't connected with me here on my Facebook wall or wherever else you may be seeing this video, to connect with us on the Think and Grow Rich call, people's lives are being changed on that call. People are having breakthroughs mentally. You can't have a breakthrough financially unless you have a breakthrough mentally. And drop off some of your old habits. So everybody's lives are being changed on this call, and I want you to experience the exact same thing that I'm experiencing on a daily basis. No fluff, no hype, no company promotions, none of that. Just pure direct information of a philosophy of Napoleon Hill to help you to move forward in your life and to get a major definite purpose, and to live that major definite purpose with power. So I'm closing it out now. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy your holiday. Get out of the house. Go enjoy your family, and talk soon.